It's Gypsy Man, and what we're going to freestyle about today. What I want to talk about today is one, I'm gonna make another video about my experience at a certain range, but we're gonna do that next. But let's talk about what I was shooting at the range. So I went to the range the other day, and I was shooting my EDCs, working with my EDC, and this is my Glock 45 with a TLR 7 A light on it. And the only reason I have this on there because this is what's closest to me when I'm in my room at home. It has a small optic on it. This one is the CSC, and the reason I have that on there is because it's one of the first optics that I bought. I didn't know much about optics at the time. Stuff was pretty much new, and if I would do it all over again, I would get a larger optic on this gun, but I'm not going to spend more money on it. I'm just going to keep using this in this little tiny window that it has on it. But if you watch my other videos, you'll see that I don't think it's necessary to have an optic on an EDC anyway. So, I bought it. I'm just going to leave it on there. And everything else is stock. So as I clean this gun, I want to talk about this argument that people keep making about Glocks. Because as you know, you would know by now that I'm a Glocker, and I'm a Glocker by profession. Really, it was the first gun that I was introduced to, semi-automatic, and I just stuck with it and pretty much mastered the feel of it. And I also started my competition, journey with a Glock as well before moving to a 2011. So let's talk about what people complain about all the time when they say that they don't like Glocks, and they talk about the trigger. And I think it's BS, and I think a lot of people are just being get-wits, and whatever they hear somebody else say, they're going to say it also, because I really don't think people have enough experience to even classify them as an authority on what's a good trigger or not. Because there's a reason why Glock makes the triggers that they make and the way that they feel. Everybody complains. Their biggest complaint about the trigger is that they say it's, and let me put it back together so I can give you an example, because I think people need to see an example of what people are complaining about. So basically, we're clear, they talk about this part, the take up, right? The take up. And they talk about the creep. And they talk about the brake, okay? A rolling brake. And in the reset, of course, when you bring it back, there's over travel and it comes back into battery. All right? Everybody tries to make their argument showing that example, which I think is stupid. And I'm going to tell you why it's stupid. Because if you've operated a gun as long as I have, you would know by now that the way you pull that trigger slowly to look at all those different stages and examples is not the way you pull it in real life. And you're not going to feel all those differences, those subtle differences when you pull the trigger. Yeah, it's heavier, but there's a reason for that. What's the reason for that? This is a combat gun. This is a duty gun. When you have a threat, and you have to put your finger onto that trigger, you want one strong wall. We know Glock has a strong wall. And you want a heavier trigger pull. Do not put a competition trigger inside of your duty or EDC guns. You need that travel. I'm telling you, this is my critical decision travel. That's what they need to change it to, right? And then you have that. You got to give it some force to pull through that wall, and then you have that roll, and then you have that break. You got a lot of time to change your mind. A threat that de-escalates. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of de-escalation in that travel. A whole lot of it. That's the way they make these guns. These guns are not for, although you can compete with them and you can make your modifications to them. And when you make your modifications to them, don't start EDCing the gun that you start modifying. Like I see a lot of people talking about, yeah, I got a lighter trigger in my Glock. I mean, recently I saw something so ridiculous, is so unnecessary and so unsafe and unreliable. You just took the reliability out of the Glock. I saw a guy take a Glock Performance trigger, take the spring out of it, which I knew he was going to do. I knew he was going to play with the spring to get the spring weight down below, which mine is first gen, and the poundage is 3.5 or at 3. That's what it averages around. That's fine. That's fine for competition. I can roll with that, and I'm happy with that. I train with that. I'm used to it. Anything lighter than that, for me, is unnecessary. I mean, I got the 2011 down below 3, and to be honest with you, it feels the same. It feels the same as my 3.5. So this guy takes the spring out of the gun. One of them, the first thing I noticed that he used my technique and actually did it wrong, and he kind of struggled with it, of putting the Glock Performance trigger bar back into the housing. You know, give me a little credit, man. You know, I make it look easy. I try to teach it easy. Man, throw my name in there, something bad, you know. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I don't really care about that. Hope it works for everybody. And it's free. I don't have no commercials, it's all free. So he does that. He takes the spring out of the sear and he puts a spring, a spring from an ink pen. A spring from an ink pen. I want y'all to listen to that. A spring for an ink pen into his Glock, into the trigger. And he said he wasn't going to use it for anything but competition. But why would you even do something so unsafe in competition and unreliable? He put a spring from an ink pen in his gun. He gets the trigger pulled down to 1.5 pounds. You don't need any Glock shooting at 1.5 pounds. It won't be reliable. And if it is, it'll shoot a few times. I'm sure it's going to have its hiccups. But why would you do that? But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But people complaining about, I see all the gun tubers. Most of the gun tubers, I wouldn't even qualify as experts on guns, although they all have the prettiest and latest technology. They have the prettiest and most expensive guns. Then then you get lucky and you're like curious like me. All right, he got all these guns. Let me see how he shoots. So you look through his page and you see him shooting. And you're like, this guy don't know what he's doing. But he has spent all this money on these guns. So this is what people are listening to. So putting stuff like reducing your trigger in the Glock down to 1.5 pounds, I don't feel like that should be put out there. You know, that's just being very negligent. You shouldn't show people how to do that. It's ridiculous because people not going, especially if they don't have the discipline that you may have. You know, you may say you use it in competition. Next thing you know, you got these people out here using these guns for EDC, the same gun. Everybody doesn't have a crazy amount of guns like certain people. So we got to be responsible for the content that we put out there. And, you know, I don't care about monetization. So, you know, I put out whatever I want to put out. I've never had an issue because I'm not doing anything that's going to harm anybody, you know. I'm just trying to educate. But that's what I noticed. And when I was shooting at this range, let me go back to the main topic, the trigger was never an issue for me. I mean, I've been shooting a long time. And I don't expect for the trigger to ever be an issue for me, but me thinking about the creep and all these things, the poundage and all these things, I was still shooting quick doubles. I mean, I will say it wasn't as fast as my competition guns, but it was only off by 1/10 of a second maybe. You know, who can count that? So, you know, when people make an argument that Glock is this, Glock is that, Glock is ugly, I don't know why you're looking at your gun while you're shooting it. Just shoot the gun. Does it feel right? Does it feel good? It does for me. That's what I roll with. But the trigger complaints, it's just ridiculous to me. You don't need a light trigger on the EDC or duty gun. All right, that trigger weight is for safety. New York police officers and the New York trigger for the Glock comes at, this is 5 pounds. It's at like 8 pounds or more, you know, and they have to use that. That's what they're using because they need to have that safety space. They even though these accidents happen, or maybe these purposes be happening with people getting hurt when they haven't committed a crime, but at least build something in this mechanism that's going to allow me to make the right decisions. And that's why I feel like the trigger is a moot point. Unless you're trying to compete, of course you want to get a gun that has a lighter trigger. You're not gonna get more crisp in the Glock, but you might want a lighter trigger for that, but that's competition, okay? And you still wanna be safe out there. And you want your competitors to be safe that's standing behind you, watching you. So that's just what I wanted to talk about real quick. I wanna follow up with the range that I went to, and that'll be on a separate video. But it's Gypsy Man, I'm gonna take care of this, because I always clean my guns after I shoot them. And until the next topic, I'm out.